Today's reading comes from the book of Genesis, chapter 29, verses 1 to 14, and I am on page 30 of the Church Bibles if you're using one of them. And it's entitled, Jacob Arrives at Pandan Aram. Then Jacob continued on his journey and came to the land of the eastern people. There he saw a wall in the field with 3 flocks of sheep lying near it, because the flocks were watered from the well. The stone over the mouth of the well was large. When all the flocks were gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone away from the well's mouth and water the sheep. They would return the stone to its place over the mouth of the well. Jacob asked the shepherds, "My brothers, where are you from?" "We're from Haran," they replied. He said to them, "Do you know Laban, Nahor's grandson?" "Yes, we know him," they answered. Then Jacob asked them, "Is he well?" "Yes, he is well," they said, "and here comes his daughter Rachel with the sheep." "Look," he said, "the sun is high. Is it not time for the flocks to be gathered? Water the sheep and take them back to the pasture." "We can't," they replied, "until all the flocks are gathered and the stone has been rolled away from the mouth of the well. Then we will water the sheep." While he was still talking to them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. When Jacob saw Rachel, daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and Laban's sheep, he went over and rolled the stone away from the mouth of the well and watered his uncle's sheep. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and began to weep aloud. He had told Rachel that he was a relative of her father and a son of Rebekah. So she ran and told her father. As soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he hurried to meet him. He embraced him and kissed him and brought him home. And there Jacob told him all these things. Then Laban said to him, "You are my own flesh and blood." May the Lord add his blessing to this reading. We're going to see a short video.
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make?
Go!
The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
Go!
Blink, and you may have missed the moonwalking bear. Blink, and you may just miss what's going on in the passage that we're looking at this morning. Because on the face of it, the passage looks like just the next step of Jacob's life, the next natural thing that's going to happen to him. It seems like your basic boy meets girl, boy and girl fall in love, boy and girl have lots of children, albeit with a few complications, as we shall see next week. Even if you were a Jewish person reading this passage, it would seem like an ordinary, classic love story, because the way it is set and the way that it's told seems like a classic love story of the time. It's a bit like when Mr. Darcy meets the heroine of that famous book, you know what's going to happen. Or when the shoe falls off Cinderella's foot as she runs away from the ball in the fairy tale, you know what's going to happen. Or Juliet looks down at Romeo from the balcony, you know what's going to happen next. And the way that this story is told, or this account of Jacob's life is told, and the way the words that are used within it and the descriptions that are there are all pointing to it being a love story. For starters, the setting is by a well, and it seems like everybody in this time seemed to meet their spouse by a well. But this seems a place to go if you wanted to be married, because Jacob does it in the passage, as we've heard, and a generation before, in chapter 24, Isaac had the same experience. Jacob's dad, he'd gone to the well, and Rebecca had turned up, and he ended up meeting the person he was going to marry. A generation later, in the book of Exodus, Moses would go through a similar experience. He'd get a different well, but he would meet the daughter of somebody and he would end up marrying them. And there are lots of other people that we don't know about who aren't in our Bibles, but would have been well known to the Jewish reader because of other stories they would have read, who had been to a well and met the person they were going to marry. And the pictures that are given and the words that are used all point to this being a love story. We have the kiss of verse 11 that we suspect is more than just a cultural greeting. We have the water flowing forth to the shoot to be watered, which was a picture of new life in Jewish times. We have Laban being found, and we have him welcoming Jacob as part of his family at the end of the passage. So when Rachel appears on the scene, we know what is going to happen. And so in verse 18 of this chapter, beyond the passage that we're looking at, when we're told that Jacob loves Rachel, it shouldn't come as any surprise. Jacob loves Rachel. No kidding. Really, I could have guessed that. Is the Pope Catholic? Does yeast make bread? Are Arsenal the best football team that ever lived? Obviously, yes. It's an obvious thing that's going to happen, and we're in no surprise when it does, or we shouldn't be. So what does this story have to tell us about God? A passage where actually God, if you notice, isn't mentioned at all in this first part of Jacob and Rachel's life together. What does this love story, which has lots of imagery going on for people who are from a Jewish or Israelite background, have to say to us who are disciples of Christ? Well, blink and you would have missed it. Because actually it's not a story about Jacob or Rachel or Laban for that matter, not this part anyway. But it's a story about how God has promised to work his promises for those who bear his image into each and every situation, especially when it seems like life is hard work. Of course, we know from last week that Jacob would have been approaching the situation in verse 2 as he came to the field in a totally different way to how he would have done maybe 2 weeks ago before he saw that vision when he was saw the angels come down from heaven and God said something to him about what was going on. We know that the situation had totally changed for Jacob. That now Jacob's whole journey had a different focus because of that vision that he saw. That as we thought about last week, no longer was God just the God of Abraham and Isaac, but now Jacob's name had been added to that famous three-person saying. That no longer was Jacob somebody who didn't have any land, even though his circumstances land-wise were still the same as they had been before the vision, because God had said it's going to be all right. That now Jacob's family life was secure, and that of his descendants was secure, because God had said so in that vision. That Jacob now was like those angels, somebody who communed with God and had been given a purpose. So now the journey had changed. No longer was there a fleeing from his murderous brother. No longer was there a dredge away without anything to sleep in, anywhere to go, anywhere to be safe. Because now, despite what Jacob had done, despite how Jacob had messed up, God had said that all would be okay and that all would be would work out, that Jacob's lot and his provision was secure by what God had done. And so we're told in verse 1 that Jacob continues on his journey. That's what our English translations say. But actually probably a more fitting translation would be, according to the Hebrew, that Jacob continued on his way with a joyful step in his path. With joy in his heart, knowing that things were different and that God was going to do something, that because of the way that God had acted in him, his father's, and was going to act in his descendants' life, everything was going to be okay. I wonder if you've ever had that feeling of joy as you've approached a day where God seems so close that you think, actually, God can do anything. I've got nothing to worry about. Nothing can possibly go wrong now. It's that day after baptism day for those who have been baptised, where you've shown your face in such a real and tangible way that you just feel close to God. It's that answer to prayer where God has done something miraculous that you just feel strong. It's that thing that makes you want to sing out in worship or punch the air in celebration because it's so good and you feel so strong. Well, that's how Jacob was feeling as he approached the field. And we don't know if Jacob was thinking, because we're not told, whether now nothing would ever go wrong, that he thought, well, God's just going to make it plain sailing, nothing's going to go wrong in my life. But in the passage, he's certainly acting with a lot of confidence. He tells the shepherds in verse 7 how to do their job in their own backyard. I'm surprised that went down as well as it did. There's the kiss, of course, of verse 11. And then there is the declaring of who he is in kinship, in family, line and heritage in verse 12. All confident acts that it's not unreasonable to read and because of the vision and the experience of God that Jacob has had. But if Jacob thought that nothing could ever go wrong, we know, and the writer of Genesis knows, that actually for Jacob it wasn't going to be plain sailing from here. If you've ever heard the story of Jacob before, and I'm sure you have, you will know that actually his life in Haran with his uncle and with Rachel and with Leah were not going to be easy. There was going to be lots of things that were going to go wrong, and it wasn't going to be plain sailing at all. If you know anything about the story of the Old Testament, you will know that Jacob's descendants, his 12 sons and the people that come from them, the 12 tribes of Israel, were going to go through all kinds of horrendous things. Slavery, wilderness, exile. It wasn't going to be easy for these people who were bearing God's image. And probably this morning, whether you're having a good time or a bad time, an easy time or a difficult time, or just somewhere in the middle, you don't need me to tell you that life isn't always plain sailing, even as a person who believes in Jesus or somebody who's trying to live a life that shows something of God. When there is a detail that's in the Bible that doesn't need to be there, we do well to think about it and ask the question, well, why is it included? Because usually it's trying to tell us something. And we have this at the beginning of the passage. Because we're told, as I've already said in verse 1, that Jacob continues through his journey, and then in verse 2, he arrives at a field where there are sheep ready to be watered. And the verse could read, Jacob arrived at the field where there are sheep ready to be watered. But actually the writer, whoever that is, hasn't written that. The writer draws our attention to the fact that there are 3 flocks there to be watered. And this is one of those frustrating parts of the Old Testament where something is mentioned that would mean a lot if you're an Israelite or perhaps a Jewish person, but to us it doesn't have the same significance, because for an Israelite or a Jewish person, the number 3 symbolically has a whole lot of background information that we just don't have. When we hear the number 3, we think, well, it's the one that comes after 1 and 2. We might hum the tune, it's a magic number, but beyond that, 3 is probably just a number that doesn't mean too much to us. But in an Israelite Jewish context, 3 meant an awful lot. Because 3 is the number of harmony. If you take one view and you take another view that doesn't really agree, you put them together, you find a third view that's a compromise, that's a mixture of the first view and the second view. So you get harmony, which 3 stands for. 3 was the kind of solid foundation that an awful lot of things were built on. In tent life, which certainly Jacob would have been living in, a lot of the things that were secure structurally had 3 kind of corners that kept them strong. 3 is the sign of new life. As one person and another person comes together and they have children, they have offspring. 3. It's no accident that in Genesis 1, that on the 3rd day, new life in plants and trees appear as the land and water separate. And so Jacob coming across 3 flocks in the passage is significant. It's a sign of what God is going to do with Jacob's life from this part onwards. As he goes into family life that was hugely important in that culture, far more important than it might be today, it was a sign of how God was going to use that family and that people to achieve certain things, to bring harmony to creation, to be the solid foundation of salvation. In short, to bring a new kind of life for those who had a relationship with God, who bore God's image. Which shouldn't be a surprise to us because we know that image bearers live for such things. And so Jacob, in the passage, comes across these 3 flocks, and then his action in verse 10 seems to underlie all that this picture of 3, the symbol of 3, stands for. Because Jacob in verse 10, he takes this great big stone and he moves it, and from that point forward, water gushes out, and then the flocks come and they're watered. The flocks of the other nations, of the people who gathered at that point to water their sheep, come together and receive some of the water that helps them survive in life. And for the Israelites, this would have had a huge picture, because the way that the Israelites were going to live was like this picture. They were to live in the land and follow the Jewish law, and the way they lived was to flow out like water to the other nations around them, that they could see something of God and know what God was like. And of course, for us as Christians, we probably can't but help notice the imagery that's being used here. Even though it's a long time before Jesus had even existed that this would have been written and told, there is imagery there for what Christ does. Because there's a big stone that is removed and water flows out. Just like on the 3rd day after Jesus died, the stone was removed and new life, because Jesus had risen, flowed from the tomb that Jesus had been buried in when he died on the cross. And so it seems on the face of it that this is a wonderful message, that God is going to do great things through Jacob and his followers, that God is going to take creation and humanity and all of life to the point of Jesus through the Israelites, and we're going to have new life. Which is of course true, that is partly what we can see in the passage. But actually, if we read verse 10, the penny should drop, that actually by the time Jacob is wrestling with the great big stone that not many people could move, there aren't 3 flocks there waiting to be watered, but there's 4. Because Rachel, the shepherdess, has joined the party. And the image and symbolism of 4, in the Jewish and Israelite culture, there is great symbolism for that as well. It's the number of authority, it's the number of government, it's the number of rule and dominion. And it's true that the Israelites were called to show some of God's dominion and life and all the rest of it. And it's true that Christ does bring this. Christ does bring God's rule and authority. But there's a darker meaning here for Jacob too. That he will suffer under rule and dominion as a person of God in a foreign land. This, if we read past the passage as we will next week, is what is going to happen to Jacob in the household of his uncle. It is not going to be easy, and he is going to suffer as much as anybody else in what happens next. But Rachel's appearance in the passage for Jacob sparks action. Jacob gets moving. He goes up and he begins to move this great big stone that actually normally people have to work together to move. But Jacob moves it by himself. He toils and the water comes forth and the sheep are watered. But actually, if you think about it, that is an odd act for Jacob to do. It's an odd thing for him to start to do because it wasn't easy. And Jacob doesn't stand to benefit from that at all. Everybody else who was gathered at that field to water their sheep, as far as we know, as far as we're told in the passage, was going to benefit from that stone being removed so that water could come out. Even if they did not own the sheep, they were being paid to take the sheep there and bring them back. And so from getting the job done would have been a good thing for them. But Jacob, the one putting all the hard work in, isn't going to benefit at all. So in that moment, albeit willingly, Jacob takes on the position of a slave, which again, if you were an Israelite reader, would have huge significance. Because we know that Jacob is going to struggle in the land, we know that already. But then actually Jacob's descendants, he's going to have 12 sons, and they're going to be the 12 tribes of Israel, and they're going to end up in Egypt, and they're going to toil. They're going to be in pain, they're going to have hardship as well. And that because of their hard work and toil, they won't benefit, but those in a foreign land, namely Egypt and Pharaoh, would benefit from their struggle. And for us as Christians, this is significant as well, because as Jacob is a foreign person going to a foreign land and doing something for other people's benefits, we know that Christ has done this also. Because Christ is somebody who bears God's image much fuller than Jacob could or we could, and goes to a foreign land, which is a world that is not the way that God wants it to be. Lives in a place where God's kingdom that Jesus has come to build isn't the kingdom that people are following. And that God too willingly takes on the place of a slave, that Jesus goes to the cross and toils there, is in pain there, so that anyone who believes in Jesus can have freedom from sin, can have freedom from the way that the world is, can live with new life. So that when that stone is rolled away from the tomb and new life flows out, something significant has changed. And so today, there is a message for us as Christians, because we know that Jesus has done that for us, but we also know that actually sometimes life isn't easy, that life is hard, that life can be difficult, that sometimes it feels like we are toiling under the pressure of all kinds of things for no benefit to ourselves. But actually, just as it was for Jacob, just as it was for the Israelite people, just as it was for Christ, God can use that. God can do something with that. God calls us to that as his image bearers so that new life can flow out. I don't know about you, but often when we're going through a hard time, when it lasts a long time, we can think, well, I just can't be bothered with this anymore. If God is so loving, if God is so kind, if God is so powerful, then why do bad and hard things keep happening? And we can fool ourselves into thinking that it's because we've done something wrong, or because God is punishing us, or because we didn't go down the right narrow path that God wanted us to go down at some point in the past. But actually, God leads Jacob into a situation for a purpose. It's not all God's doing, but he uses it. God sent Christ to the cross for a very real purpose. We know that's God's will because Christ may take it away if it wasn't. Have you ever noticed that in life, the people who are able to support those who are going through a hard time better than some other people, usually, are those who have been through the exact same thing or something very similar? That when we go through a hard time, when we know what that's like, and when we come out the other side, when we come across somebody else who's going through that hard time, it is a lot easier to get alongside and support them than it is maybe if we've never experienced that ourselves. And maybe this morning the hard thing, or the hard things that come to mind, isn't some great big catastrophic thing that has happened in your life, but it could just be the drudgery of day to day. It could just be that things are overcomplicated and difficult. It could be that there's people in your life that make things more difficult than they need to be. Put stuff on you that doesn't need to be there, and it feels like you're toiling under this weight and you don't really understand why. Well, God can use anything to bring new life. That toiling, that removing of the stone and water flowing out so that other people could come and receive the goodness of it, so that the sheep of the different flocks could come and drink and be refreshed and receive life, is a picture for any of us when we end up in that situation. That when we toil and we bring that to God in relationship, wherever it may be in our lives, God can use that to give new life to all kinds of people that we would never think God could give new life to. And the final picture at the end of the passage shows that God doesn't leave any of us in a situation of pain or slavery for eternity. But that is a very real picture we have. Even in this passage, it seems to be pointing at something quite difficult for the rest of it. Because right at the end of the passage, things are going well for Jacob. Rachel goes and runs and gets Laban, and Jacob is welcomed into this family unit, and at that moment, all is well. He's his own flesh and blood, he's given land. God provides in that moment for what Jacob needs, even though next week things get a bit more difficult. And so when we're going through that time, know that God doesn't leave us there by ourselves. That even in the midst of difficult, complicated life, God can put things in our path that can keep us going. God can provide for us. God can make us God's own flesh and blood by what Jesus has done on the cross for us. I'm going to pray, and then we're going to sing our final song together to close our service. Lord God, so often we don't know why the world is the way that it is, or our place in it seems to be complicated, difficult, sometimes just mundane and uninteresting. Sometimes we don't know how we are meant to see the good in incredibly hard situations. And so, Lord, we thank you for these passages that point at a God who sometimes even in the background is working to make new life flow from all kinds of difficult, hard, rocky places. And so, Lord, we pray that when we're in a situation where we're toiling, for whatever reason, whatever makes up that feeling, we know that we don't toil alone, but we toil with you there with us. And that you bring all kinds of goodness that we can never imagine, from the weirdest and surprisingest of situations. Lord, we pray that when we're not in that situation, but we know of people who are, that you would give us the courage and the ability and the grace and the words and actions to be able to encourage and get alongside and help, even if we can do nothing to solve that situation. And Lord, we bring all of those who are in this church or connected to this church this morning, who are going through some very real and difficult things where we can't see where you're working, and we don't know, and we're just a little bit upset on their behalf that they're having to face some truly difficult things. And we pray that you would support them, and that you would love them, and that you would let your Spirit flow with new life right there in the midst of the pain that they're going through. Lord, in the quietness and the stillness, we just bring situations of our own lives, situations of those who we're close to, situations of others within this church or in this neighbourhood, or the places where we spend a lot of time in the week, where there are situations where we just wish it was different. And we bring these before you now. comes to mind is of a candle that's flickering, and for a candle to burn, you need to give it oxygen. And I just get the sense that some people here this morning just feel like they're being starved of that oxygen to feel close to God and to really see that candle of what it means to burn for Him, burn for God, to be missing. And I just think that God knows that, and that God wants to say that He knows what it's like. He knows what those people, that person, is going through. And that when we come and we wait on Him and we find other people to pray and talk to and share with, that it can give that oxygen that helps us to burn. And if that is you this morning, that means anything. It might not, it might be completely wrong. I just encourage you to talk to me or to somebody else about that this morning. Lord God, we thank you that you are with us in all things. And we pray as we go out into this next week that you would be working, that you would be helping us, and that you'd be helping new life to be seen wherever we step and we go, and whatever work or toil, whatever situation, good or bad, we're involved in. We pray this in your name.